and has personally visited every county in New York State, listening to people's concerns. The Sharpe Way is a show where answers, solutions, and common ground can be found so that together we can forge a new way forward. The Sharpe Way is the way to mutual respect, where no one has to convert to be heard, because you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want, as long as you aren't forcing your beliefs on others. Welcome to Sharpe Way Radio.
Hey, it is Larry Sharpe here on Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. So happy to be here. There is a number you can call if you want to chat. Yeah, 585-346-3000. That's 3 zeros. You know, I was away last week, spending some time with family and friends, but I'm back. I know some of you missed me, but I am here now. Back in action again. I was thinking about what happened this weekend here in New York City, where I live. I live in Astoria, Queens. And there was a lot of violence this week. I was thinking, why? Is there so much violence constantly? And I was watching some of the news. It was a little bit depressing, not just because of the obvious death and violence, which is obvious, but they were showing so many people. And they happened to be showing older women of color, Black and Hispanic, and them saying things like, I don't understand. Why are we killing each other? A lot of that. I thought to myself, okay, why? I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy. I thought about vaping. All right. I'm not saying I wouldn't go out and vape. Not what I'm saying. But some of you remember when I ran for governor in 2018 and when I ran again in 2022, one of the issues that I kind of jumped on was vaping. 2018 specifically. I was very much about people being able to vape if they wanted to vape. That's what I said. If they wanted to vape, they should be able to vape. Now, I'm not a vapor, not a smoker, so not something that I would enjoy myself. But I know some people like it. People use it for harm reduction. People decide to, not smoke or to, use it for something else. Whatever. You do what you feel is appropriate. I'm totally okay with that. But my point was, let people do what they want to do when it comes to vaping. And the vaping industry, many of them were actually against me. Why? What the vaping industry, many of them, not all, but many of the leaders in the industry said, Larry, you don't understand. We have to work with the government to regulate our industry. If we do that, that's how we'll be okay. I said, no, don't you dare give the government even 1 second, 1 inch, nothing. You allow them to treat you like a controlled substance and you're finished. Maybe they might let big business buy you all out so that you all get crushed and big business controls you, maybe. Otherwise, they'll just devastate you. They didn't believe me. No, we're going to work with the legislators, help them out, make this happen. And what happened? They basically outlawed vapes in New York State. They were destroyed. They gave the government something, and the government crushed them completely. Of course, that's what I told them. They didn't hear me. They didn't want to hear me. So now you got a bunch of shops that were vape shops that now really can't survive as vape shops anymore. What did they become? They became smoke shops. Yes, smoke shops. A little bit different. In the case of a smoke shop, now they can't make money on the vaping products. So what do? Well, they sell other things like glassware. Yeah, glassware. It's a bong, but you can't call it a bong because that's against the law. But you can sell glassware, which is a bong. You just can't call it a bong. So people who were selling vaping products now started selling basically cannabis paraphernalia and cannabis products. Wait a minute. Is cannabis legal in New York State? Well, then it wasn't. Doing it anyway. Then it was selling stickers and then giving cannabis away when you buy a sticker. I'm not joking. That's how they sold cannabis. So they went into the black market. Literally, they went right into the black market, which is what I always say. If people want a substance, let it be legal and safe, or you go to the black market. So they went to the black market. So now smoke shops, to survive, are basically selling cannabis products. Well, wait a minute. Larry, that's easy. Who cares? Cannabis in New York State is now legal. Well, theoretically it is, but there's expensive licensing through an Office of Cannabis Management, which is an embarrassment. The fact that we have that, we should be ashamed, but we do. Well, these guys can't go through that. They can't spend the $250,000 it takes to get the license or wait to get one. What do? They just sell it illegally in a smoke shop. And say, Larry, why did you walk down this road? You went to vaping in the smoke shops, cannabis, the black market, because that's where the violence comes from. And out of the 5 murders that happened in New York City this weekend, 3 were, guess where? Smoke shops. Why? It's the black market. When you go to the black market, you can't use cops in courts. And when you can't use cops in courts, you have to enforce everything via violence. You can't use cops in courts anymore. You go to violence. Mass shootings. Most mass shootings, what the media won't tell you, is not actually a kid shooting up a school, which is terrible, obviously. But most of them is gang violence. That's correct. Most mass shootings are gang violence in the streets of Chicago, New York City, wherever. Well, New York City, to be forward, as big as it is a relatively safe city. Now, note the word I used, relative. It is relatively safe compared to other large cities, right? Philly, far more dangerous. Chicago, far more dangerous than New York. But in those cities where most of the gang violence is, that's where your mass shootings are. It's gang violence. It's young men shooting each other. That's what this is. So first thing is black market. That's why these women can't understand why they're shooting each other. Black market, number one. What's the second piece here, though? The second piece is what I just said. Young men. Lost young men. And the black market is the perfect storm for mass violence. Men who are lost, don't know where to go, can't find a job, don't believe in joining the military, don't believe in starting a business, can't start a business, decide instead, I'll go in the black market. I can be tough guy there. I can do some stuff there. I can be somebody there. And if I got to shoot somebody or get shot, okay, I'll do it. And for some of you listening, you might say, Larry, that's not how young men think. That is literally how young men think. Literally. And if you were a young man, you probably thought that way. And if you are a young man, you might be thinking that right now. So I really hope that you are finding purpose someplace else. Otherwise, you go to the black market. What's that saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. To include some gangbanger in the black market, or some guy who's telling you how you can make $1 bazillion selling cannabis at the back of a store, or how you can make a bunch of money selling glassware out of this store or that store. Don't worry about it. Something happens. You got a gun. You're a tough guy. You can take care of this because you're a tough guy. And the young men go, yeah, I am a tough guy. And then they're shot dead. Or then they're in prison because they shot somebody else dead. Again and again and again. Constantly. So I'll go one step further. The mass violence in, was it Kentucky? And then before in Tennessee? In both cases, again, lost young men. Unhappy, no purpose, worried, scared, broken. The guy who did the shooting in, was it yesterday? Kentucky, literally told his friends, I'm feeling suicidal. That's what he said. Feeling suicidal. So he did what so many of these people do. He went out and killed others. You have heard me say this 100 times, maybe 200 times, and I'll keep saying it. the vast majority of these school or public shootings, not gang violence, the school or bank shootings or whatever they are public suicides. That last time I checked, they don't know if the Kentucky shooter was killed by a cop or killed himself. They don't know yet. Maybe they found out since I last checked. But since I last checked, they weren't sure. That means somebody thinks he killed himself. Because that's what they always do. They know at the end of their spree, they're either going to jail forever, being killed by a cop, or killing themselves. They're aware of this. That's why they tell people before they leave. That's why they write manifestos. That's why they say goodbye. That's why they do all those things. They know it's over. Gang violence, black market, created by the government, broken young men, sadly also created by government, is why we have all this violence. High regulation, high taxation, high control creates broken men, creates a black market, creates violence. Am I wrong? Tell me. 585-346-3000. Larry Sharpe here on Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL Rochester, New York, back with your calls and your internet chat after the break.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace?
Hey, Larry, I sent you a text. Did you hear about the story about the throughway rest stops?
Attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give
I sent you a link to the story. The construction company is now looking for over $200 million due to cost overruns.
Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website.
You're welcome.
They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Inside the Taylor Laboratories.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
Not to mention, I have not heard a single good thing about any of the new ones.
What's that?
A sample of indoor air.
How can it be that dirty? Don't AC and furnace filters help?
Only with dust, Zach. But when Taylor installs a whole house APCO air purifier to detox the air, odors, chemicals, mold, bacteria, and viruses are removed.
For clean indoor air.
Yep. Ain't science awesome?
Yeah, and the ones they tore down were built, if I'm not mistaken, in the 90s.
With incompetent, devious Washington and Albany leadership and a corrupt corporate media that uses news and social to control and mislead, it's important to preserve freedom of speech and to promote a truth-based society for our families. Try something different in 2023. The WYSL stations can grow your business, professional practice, or organization, so allocate your ad dollars here. Take advantage of a huge audience entertained and informed by leading conservative thought. Affordable and effective. The WYSL stations, the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, it is Larry Sharpe here, WYSL, Rochester, New York, Sharpe Way Radio, 585-346-3000 is the number to reach out to me. And yes, I was talking about violence. And you're going to say, wait a minute, Larry, did you blame the government for violence? I did. The surprising shock that you must hear, that literally Larry Sharpe says government's the problem. Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. It is true. So let me grab a couple of comments if I could. Michael Voss, the man himself from No Sound Bites Allowed, the dragon of the Southern Tier here in New York is listening. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate that. He says, afternoon, Larry. I hope you and your family had a good Easter. Yes, I was away last week with my family. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Yes. And he also mentions that the audio is live. And for those of you listening online, sometimes you will hear my engineer also talking with me. And that's fine. I'm aware of that. I'm happy to be completely transparent. This radio show is on radio and also online. So both of those. Absolutely. Patty says, I hear more and more desperate times call for desperate measures. I hope these people are wrong, but the shelterless working humans here are desperate. You know, Patty, that excuse is a common excuse. This is why they always create desperate times. Here's the bigger problem that when it comes to desperate that people don't talk about. Desperate people do desperate things. I know people think, well, it's these terrible poor people or whatever bad word they want to use against the people they don't like, right? Or these terrible immigrants, or these terrible, people in the ghetto, or whatever they want to say, these drug addicts, whatever euphemism they use to say bad person I don't like. Here's the reality. The people doing bad things usually are in bad situations. There are exceptions, don't get me wrong. There are bad people who are going to do bad things no matter what. Those people exist. But that's a small percentage. There will always be, no matter how awesome our culture or our environment ever is, there will always be a small percentage of people who will do bad things. We're past that now. There's a whole lot of people doing bad things. When a whole lot of people doing bad things, that's people in bad situations, right? That's people who are desperate, doing desperate things. Patty, my whole point, and I hope you see this in me, is to try to make people less desperate, less people desperate. You will have less people doing desperate things. To be clear again, there will be bad people who will do bad things. But how do bad people become horrible people? Really, how? The exception to people like Jeffrey Dahmer or something, they become horrible because they're able to get other people to join them in their bad things. So if I'm some bad guy in a bad neighborhood and I want to go do bad things, if it's just me, how bad can I be? Right? But now the government says, hey, young men, don't go to school, don't go to work, stay at home, and I'm going to create a black market to where all goods are now much more expensive. I'm going to block things that people want so they want to do anything to get it. So you're desperate because you have to stay home. Here's a way of making money. Now bad guy Larry has an army of people. That's literally how gang violence works. Again, literally how it works. Black market, army of young men, gang warfare. You can't do gang warfare if those two things don't exist. It's just one bad guy, I don't know, robbing a liquor store or something, which is bad. But that's one guy. You get rid of one guy, you're good. But what happens when I have an army of young men behind me and not robbing one liquor store, but 20? Or they're doing shakedowns of all the stores. Or they're running the cities and killing people. By the way, the other people in New York City who were killed were elderly people who were being robbed or taken advantage of by guess who? You guessed it, young men. Yes, young men who were either beating up and or in this case, stabbing. That's how a couple people died this weekend here in New York City by old men being stabbed by young men, old women being stabbed by young men. Yeah, that's true. So your desperate quote, Patty, I'd rather look at it as desperate people will do desperate things. So let's make less desperate people and let's make them less desperate. I think if we do that, we'll have a much better way of handling things. But I want to move on to one more thing, if I could. How do you then make these men less desperate? Women too, obviously, but I'm talking about violence, so that's almost always men, right? The jails aren't filled with violent women, the jails are filled with violent men. So in this case, let's talk about men, because they're doing the violence, particularly young men. Well, one way is to get them jobs. That is, right? That's a way, not the only way. So what can I do to make that happen? Often, people think, well, the government should make jobs. Okay, I get that. That is an option. But is it a long-term option? It isn't. And the reason why people think it's a good answer is often a quick answer. So what should we do? Take taxpayer dollars, shove it into some make-work program, get some young men out there to work. They won't be out in the streets doing bad stuff. That sounds amazing, right? Sounds great. But the problem is it's not long-term. And I've got to keep doing it. What I should be doing instead is allowing people and assisting people and encouraging people to create their own local businesses that provide value to a community that is ongoing, that a community can support itself by also giving the services and products that people want and hiring people to deliver those products and services. Yes, that's what I should be doing. Why do I bring this up? Because I was just looking at a story my engineer brought up regarding the exits on the interstates across New York State. And for those of you who remember, years ago, our previous king, His Majesty King Cuomo II, second of his name, he decided he was going to help out New York by fixing all the exits on the interstates, on the New York State Thruway. Well, okay. Why? People thought, why? Well, what he said was, we have to beautify them and blah, 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 whatever lie he said. And he would lie constantly. So that lie is not going to shock you. Another one in a list, a litany of lies. That was another one he said. That wasn't true at all. Those actual rest stops along the Thruway were fine. I know I'd crossed the state multiple times. I've been to many of them. They were fine. He decided to fix them. So basically, he paid, the state paid contractors to bulldoze a bunch of them and then rebuild them, I guess, more green, theoretically, which green in this case means weaker, worse materials that they need to replace faster. Why do you want that? You might go, Larry, that seems dumb. Why would they want to have greener stuff to replace faster? Well, because green makes it good. So now I'm good. I can virtue signal. I use green stuff, even though no one listening knows what the green stuff is. I don't either, but I put a stamp of green on it. Therefore, it's good. And second, if it rots away in 5 years, I have to rebuild it. Isn't that awesome? I get to waste more taxpayer dollars creating jobs. Again, I'm not joking. Now, with this happening, one, they're way behind schedule. Cuomo hasn't been governor in, 3 years now? 2 years? Whatever it's been. A couple of years. He hasn't been governor. Still not fixed. I tease people as I'm driving across the Thruway. I say every other rest stop is supposed to be bulldozed. And generally speaking, every other one is. So now it's actually worse now on the Thruways because every other stop is bulldozed. So you don't have a rest stop every other stop. It's actually worse right now. And they haven't even been able to fix it because they've lost money. So now they're asking the state for more money. Well, Larry, what's your answer? I've told you what my answer is already. Instead of spending money on this, every rest stop, you lease it out. I'm not joking. Lease it out. Here's a rest stop. Company, you want to build something on it, you may. Go ahead if you want to. It's X million dollars per year per rest stop. Oh, you want a monopoly on all of them? Great. Buy them all. Multiples of millions of dollars. And now you have them all. The state pays nothing. The state should get paid for this. I'm giving you traffic. I'm giving you an audience. You would have to pay millions to find this through a marketing company. I'm giving it to you for free. So it's not free. Instead, you're going to pay me. I'm the state. Give me money. Go ahead. Build your thing. I say, why does that matter? Because as long as the state has it, if things go bad, the state has to pay. What if it's a private company? Patty has her own company. She's going to go ahead and build out what she wants there. Awesome. If it goes bad, if it goes south, things go wrong, her responsibility. Taxpayers don't pay for that. The big business pays for that. Big business will be fine. That's why it has insurance. That's why it has all the things it requires to function. Big business is fine. It's not like big business is suffering in this country. They're doing just fine. So they can pay us and they can fix our throughways, which is what I've been saying forever. And I know some of you right now are going, oh my God, that makes total sense. Why won't they do that? Why won't they do that? Here's the reason why. If I do that, I'm not responsible for handing out the jobs. I want to be clear on this. This is why governors do this. This is why legislators do this. They want to be able to be responsible for handing out jobs. If they hand out the jobs, then they get all the money in return in donations. This is how one hand washes the other. It is legalized corruption. That's the reason why. Do you think I'm crazy? I probably am. Well, call me and tell me. 585-346-3000. Larry Sharpe, Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL Rochester, New York. Back with your calls and more of your chat after the break.
For truth and freedom.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. We're looking at mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures very mild, staying in the low 50s. On Wednesday, any early clouds will clear for some nice sunshine. Not as much wind. Really nice,
You're welcome.
Wednesday coming up, temps in the low 70s. Thursday, mostly sunny, mid-70s. Could be in the upper 70s on Friday. Just a little bit cooler up near Lake Ontario with fair, dry weather through the end of the week. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
FM Talk.
Are you thinking about Medicare insurance? Navigating Medicare and all of its coverage options doesn't have to be confusing. I can help. My name is Dave Moskowitz, and I'm an agent authorized to offer AARP Medicare plans from United Healthcare Insurance. It's my commitment to provide you with personal, knowledgeable service and help you better understand Medicare and all your coverage options. There's a variety of competitive plans.
Yeah, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but just simply they could have, if he wanted better rest stops, then okay, you could expand what you have, but just find tenants, like you say, that want to spend the money. But like you said, it's all putting money in Cuomo's pocket, making him look good, which, worked for the people on his side, but we could see right through it right from the start.
5217.
United Healthcare Insurance Company or an affiliate, collectively United Healthcare, pays royalties to AARP.
Yep.
Insurer and does not employ or endorse agents, producers, or brokers. AARP encourages you to consider your needs when selecting products.
Meanwhile, the other thing was totally shutting down every other rest spot. I feel sorry for anyone with young kids that needed a bathroom and said, sorry, got away another 40 miles.
The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business.
All right, got a caller, Keith from Rochester.
Clients achieve HIPAA, PCI.
You're welcome. And and not for nothing. How hard would it have been to come up with a plan where you have like the portable? I'm not talking outhouses, those nice trailers like they have at the fair.
Plus Better Business Bureau.
Because they kept gas open, but that was it.
At 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your run? Call 11111.
It can be strangely amusing watching that injury attorney interviewing a tractor trailer. But while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes your case seriously, and you'll feel like you're his only client because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. So instead of cute singing jingles and magic phone numbers,
Hurt opening wine? Call 99999.
write this number down and keep it with you. 585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're smarter than a mud flap. Get individual attention and integrity, experience, and expertise. Put the power of one on your legal team. 415-3803. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson, attorney, personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI Defense.
Hi, I'm Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter, here with Judge Valeriani.
We all believe in keeping our streets safe.
And Judge Owens.
And some of the conversations are confusing. One thing is sure, our elected officials believe we can do better. We can help by encouraging all our elected officials to just keep talking and find solutions to keep our families safe.
That is why we're forming the consortium to keep our families safe. All of us working together to find solutions, and we will.
Okay, so let's keep Keith short, and then we have Gary on the line.
And it's the perfect time to start growing savings for the special kids in your life. Advantage Federal Credit Union will help by matching deposits up to $20 in a youth account at Advantage. During National Credit Union Youth Month, we're going to invest in your child's future right along with you. Open a youth account at Advantage and we'll match your deposit up to $20. Grow some green this month for your favorite kids at Advantage. Offer expires April 30th.
Smart banking.
Membership subject to eligibility. Child Social Security number required for account opening.
The National Warplane Museum Geneseo Air Show featuring F-16 Viper and other aerobatic displays. June 3rd and 4th. The sights, the sounds, and thrills of warbirds and aircraft aerobatics, parachutes, the P-51, and Rob Holland. 3 different ticket options at GeneseoAirshow.com.
Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, Larry Sharpe is here. Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York, 585-346-3000. Before the break, I was talking about violence and young men and jobs and government jobs. And I got a couple calls off that. Not sure which ones these are, but I'm going to grab them if I could. I'm going to grab Keith from Rochester. Keith, how are you?
I called in because you've been using the word desperate for the human condition. For the human condition to be desperate is nothing new. That's been around ever since there's been people. David Thoreau, the naturalist and spiritualist from the 1830s and 1840s, had a famous saying: most men lead lives of quiet desperation. That's a true saying. And also in his time, child labor was very prevalent. So now between his time before the Civil War and our time, the two main things that have changed are that in people's lives, they today have many more choices than back in the 19th century. And secondly, communications today are instant. That means that if a man was lonely in Thoreau's time, he would just keep it to himself. Today, and I'm going to tie that in quickly with the mass shooters, if someone is lonely and even suicidal, he will compare himself immediately to what he perceives as the happy lives of others.
Yes.
But back in Thoreau's time, you pretty much, it was instilled in you, really, that instilled to just keep your quiet desperation. Hey, you buster, to yourself. And if you're having problems, go down to the local saloon or tavern. But just, hey, bud, keep it to yourself. Today, everyone wants to be a star with Facebook and all of the social networking. Everyone wants to be out there. So in closing, because I was told to keep it short, let's create parallel economies. Let's start getting these young men, everyone, employed. Now that you can work at home to be your own personal entrepreneur, instead of relying on the government to create jobs, let's get everyone to think in terms of being their own personal entrepreneur. So,
well, let me touch a bunch of things. Keith, you brought up a bunch of things. Let me go, if I can, back to front, if I can remember now. Your idea of entrepreneurship and working from home is a wonderful idea. There's a problem. The government's figured that out too, and that's what they're trying to stop it. That's why they're attacking entrepreneurship. They're attacking freelancing. They're attacking gig economies. They're trying to make it harder and harder. So you are correct. And the government's like, let's not do what Keith says, because that'll help them out, not us. So the government's literally trying to stop that now. I think that's true. But the second piece you brought up, or maybe that was the third, I'm not sure, was the idea of, the man going down to the tavern or whatever the case may be. There are two things that actually made that better, even though he may have been drinking or maybe hurting himself with alcohol, perhaps, depending upon how often that individual drank. He was still with others. So there was still a connection, which we lack, right? So if we're going to be working from home, that's awesome. And we should still be going down to the bar or the restaurant or the club or whatever is the thing, or the church or whatever is the thing, to still get a connection. So even though that guy might have been lonely by his workday, when he was done with his workday, he was with other men who were also lonely. But not just that. Your first point you brought up, or maybe your second, was how they compare themselves. Well, now you're right. I compared myself to some guy on Instagram or some guy on Facebook or Twitter who's having a wonderful life. Then I was comparing myself to my neighbor who was also struggling just as I was. So while there might have been some quiet desperation, it actually wasn't as bad in that social aspect of it. So, Keith, I agree with a lot of things you said. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
All right, bye.
So I think Keith's got a lot of valid points. We do want to make that secondary economy. I think we do want to do it. Absolutely.
Gary.
Let me grab a second call if I could. This is Gary. Gary, how are you?
I'm very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome.
I'd like to talk about a couple of different points here.
Okay.
I guess one is the gun issue, the rash of shootings. If you go back to a number of these back into the past on these things, you'll find that these shooters have things in common. One is a lot of them have been put on some kind of a drug when they were younger.
Yep.
Right? The next thing is a lot of them are on the radar, as they put it. They're on the FBI's list or the local police list. And it seems like instead of intervening and getting them help, it's possible that they're just allowing it to happen. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you look at, I've pretty heavily involved in getting our gun rights back here in New York. And one of the
So
things
you're
that
struggling.
Well, we've got our wins here and there. I know it
That's
doesn't
true.
look good right now, but we are making a pretty rapid trip up to the Supreme Court, possibly. So anyhow, these, I guess the reason.
So let me touch what you just brought up real fast. And the first thing is you're missing one more thing. You're right. They're almost always on some type of psychotropic drug. That's true. And they're almost always on the radar, either the local police force, school officials, or FBI. That's true. But there's one more thing that's common. They don't have a girlfriend. They don't have a spouse. They don't have a significant other. They don't have relationships, which means they don't have social purpose. So that's one of the reasons why they're on the radar and one of the reasons why they're on that drug. Keep going. I'm sorry, Gary.
Well, and that leads to, New York has prohibitions on all kinds of gun purchases. They've got ammo background checks, all this stuff, red flag laws, you name it. It's everything you want. But they still happen. And every time they happen, every town for gun safety or every town law, Moms Demand Action, they all send out emails requesting people send funds or come to one of their rallies. And it's a fraud on the people because nothing they ever propose has any effect on it. You got to fix the broken people. You can't take guns away
100%.
from the regular people and solve it. So if they manipulate the data, their favorite thing now is to tell everybody that the gun violence is the leading cause of death for kids between whatever the ages are.
Oh, no. They don't say the ages, Gary, because so for those of you who don't know what Gary's talking about, there was a recent data that came out talking about, how much gun violence is in America. And they said the number one killer now is children is gun violence. The reason why they don't say the age is because in that specific study, they said a child is up to 19 years old. I'm not joking. They decided to change the definition of child to 19. So most gun violence, and I'm sure Gary knows this is true, this is for the rest of the audience, is gang violence, people young men between 16 and 19. That's the vast majority of gun violence. It's gang violence, men between the ages of 16 and 19, or 16 and 24, something like that, in that area. But the chunk that they pull out is the 16 to 19, and they call them children. If you pull that 16 to 19 out and say, well, kids are under 15, it's minuscule. Am I right, Gary?
You're correct. And the other thing that they add into the number for so-called gun violence is suicide, which is over half of the total. So anyway, I guess the whole point of it is these people are a fraud, and they're taking, well-intentioned, misguided people's money to cause patriotic citizens to raise funds to fight these gun laws because they're coordinating all around the country with different receptive state governments. Now they're even supplying them. But
here's the part that bothers me more than anything else, Gary. Everything you're saying is true. But the other part that bothers me is we're not even dealing with the actual problem, which I talked about at the beginning of the show. The problem with violence, if someone had asked me that question, hey, do you know what is the leading killer of children in America? I would say, you talking about the study that came out? They go, yeah. I say, yeah, I do know. It is government-created black market and broken young men. That's what it is. That's what's killing them. Because I said on Joe Rogan literally 5 years ago, what's killing our kids, lack of community, lack of purpose, and loneliness. And this goes back to what Keith was talking about. Loneliness. Those three things are killing our kids. It doesn't matter whether they have guns or not. We have to fix that problem. That's the issue.
Well, you've got broken people, and they're susceptible to anything that somebody tells them, and they get involved in these street gangs, and then you're done. Now, the other problem we got here in New York, are you familiar with the New York Citizens Audit Group at all?
Yes.
Okay. They've got an event this weekend at the Italian American Community Center in Rochester, and Marley Hornick, the director, is going to be speaking at 10 a.m.
There we go.
And I just want everybody to understand that
10 a.m. What day was it?
It's Saturday the 15th.
There we go. Saturday the 15th, 10 a.m.
You can it's free admission, but if you go email to events, I'm sorry, hold on a second here. I think it
should be ready with this one, Gary. You messed up.
I know it. I got the wrong folder here in front of me. Okay, it's
Go ahead.
Get tickets at pm.me.
There we go. Get tickets at pm.me. There we go.
Yep.
Gary, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks for the time.
So there's the issue. Are we going to take care of the real issues, or are we just going to keep doing the same things and having the same results? I'd like to make some real changes. You tell me. 585-346-3000. Larry Sharpe on Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. Back with your calls. And I know the chat's blowing up. I will do the chat also after the break.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Are you cold in your home? Pick up the phone and call Wise Home Energy at 270-5836. Don't be cold in your home. Pick up the phone, call 270-5836. Wise Home Energy has helped thousands of people get millions in grants and rebates to make their homes much warmer. So don't be cold in your home. Pick up the phone, call Wise Home Energy at 270-5836 today.
Wise Home Energy is a participating contractor in the Home Performance with Energy Star program.
With incompetent, devious Washington and Albany leadership and a corrupt corporate media that uses news and social to control and mislead, it's important to preserve freedom of speech and to promote a truth-based society for our families. Try something different in 2023. The WYSL stations can grow your business, professional practice, or organization, so allocate your ad dollars here. Take advantage of a huge audience entertained and informed by leading conservative thought. Affordable and effective. The WYSL stations, the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, it is Larry Sharpe back here on Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. So happy that you're giving me a small chunk of your afternoon. I do want to cover, a lot of people are putting up in the chat. I do want to bring up a couple of those if I could. Some people are packing it up here, so I'm going to keep going here and grab a couple of those. Dave says, he's bringing up some very important points. He said, if you look at the turnpike/toll roads in Illinois, Oklahoma, and Kansas, the rest areas/service plazas are sponsored by the businesses that operate the restaurants, gas stations, and convenience stores. Yes. He goes on to say, I think federal law prohibits free highways from doing things like that on interstates that are not toll roads. Well, if you remember, Dave, I think you're right on this one. The federal government has a lot of stipulations on this. Of course it does. But this is the issue that I bring up constantly. My goal for New York State is to be able to raise money through ways other than taxation, which does two things. One, lowers the tax burden of local New Yorkers, which is what I want, lower the tax burden, but still get the services you want. I still want you to have rest stops. Of course I do. I still want you to have roads. Of course I do. But I want another way of paying for it. In this case, big business pays for it. Yeah, they get to put their name on it. I don't care. You get a rest stop and it's free. So stop complaining, right? Take the rest stop. So it's got some big business name on it. So it's the Amazon rest stop. I don't care. It's free. Your tax go down. You get a rest stop, right? So done deal. But on top of that, if they pay for it, I won't require federal funds. How does the federal government, how does it enforce its rules and regulations? Through withholding money. They're not actually going to bring cops down and arrest us. That's not going to happen. What they're going to do is simply go, you must do it or we won't give you money. I'll go, I don't need your money. Have a nice day. So that's the goal. The goal for my long-term goal, which I mentioned in 2018, was after 4, 6, or 8 years, depending upon how long it takes to wean ourselves off of federal money, we then sue the federal government saying, we're not paying your taxes anymore because we're not taking them. So now it becomes a lawsuit. Now, do I win the lawsuit as New York State? Who knows? But if I start, others start. Hopefully we actually win. People see how we can do it, see how states can be more independent. We can break our way from off the federal teat. That was the goal in the long run. So I think you are correct, Dave, but I knew that with my plan, and I wanted to make sure that we'd walk away down that road. So thank you for that. I do appreciate it. So yes. So let me see if I can go down here. So Valerie says, society is broken. Aw. She goes on to say, Audit New York has new info/evidence they found. This will be talked about Saturday at 10, as was mentioned earlier. So if you guys want to go there, please feel free. You guys know I support the Second Amendment. In fact, I'm the only former governor candidate who does and who has consistently. And the thing you will hear me constantly do, that sadly most Republicans will not do, but this libertarian will. Most of the time after any type of gun violence or shooting, Democrats will scream, to Gary's point, get rid of all the guns, give us money so we can get rid of all the guns. They'll do that. And number two, Republicans will just, now's not the time, thoughts and prayers. I don't. I always talk about guns right after. Doesn't matter. All of our rights matter all of the time. Doesn't matter when. All of our rights matter all the time. To include due process, to include Second Amendment, to include First Amendment, all of those things. They always matter. If you remember, when our previous king, His Majesty King Cuomo II, second of his name, when he got accused before he had to step down, when he had accused of all his, butt grabbing stuff, I was out here and I said, nope, even he deserves due process. When so many people were screaming and yelling, yay, 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 put him away, lock him up, I was like, no, let's wait till the investigation is done because even he deserved due process. I'm glad he got it, and I'm glad he's gone. However, even he deserved due process. All of our rights matter all of the time. So, yes, absolutely. Ed says, if we want to fix broken young men, we know there are black-pilled influences which they're grifting and making them indoctrinated to this negativity stuff. You know what, Ed? You are 100% correct. If you remember what I said earlier, when you have lost men young men specifically, they will fall for anything. Absolutely. Gary said it. Keith said it. Both the last two callers said it. Keith was like, they're getting lost. They're falling for anything. He's right. You're right. So we're mad at the guys like Andrew Tate. People are mad at him. Oh, he's making men feel bad and hurting boys and hurting young men because they're lost. That's the reason why. And you are correct. There should be no room for a negative guy to tell men to be bad and to hate women or whatever. I don't know. Whatever he's saying. I don't know what he's saying. I don't really care much about Andrew Tate either way. But people don't like him and people like him. I get it. But if there's a market for a guy like him or others, that's not his fault. Ed, you're right. That's ours. We have to debunk them, as Ed says, and find ways to show people, particularly young men, there's a better way. And community is going to help tremendously. I'm not saying we should have a bar every 5 feet, but if I have a choice of getting a bar every 5 feet or broken men, I'll take a bar every 5 feet, right? If that's my two choices. So, yes. So thank you for that, Ed. I appreciate that. Ira says, Larry Sharpe for Governor of New York, thank you. Repeal the Sullivan Act and the SAFE Act, make New York lovable again. I would have never thought in the same sentence of repeal the Sullivan Law and the SAFE Act to make New York lovable again. But the concept that I was talking about is a real one. Let people, if they want to defend themselves with firearms or anything else, allow them to. Remember something. The Second Amendment isn't about guns. We keep saying it is. It's not. It doesn't say the right to, to have guns. It says the right to bear arms. Whether that's guns or knives or whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever weapon of choice you want to use to defend yourself, you should have. If you can't defend your life and your property, why have a government? Let me say that one more time. If you can't defend your life and your property, and of course, the life and property of those you love, why have a government? Doesn't make any sense. That's supposed to be the purpose, right? Ira is correct. I think we should be able to do that to the best of our ability. Steve goes on and says, choose liberty, not fear. Larry Sharpe rocks. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Valerie says, New York Citizens Audit has a Facebook page as well as Twitter. So as if you care about that event, please check that out. She then goes on and says that, I won't use the words she used, but she's saying Cuomo's trying to come back. Guys, I am obviously not a fan of Cuomo. For years, I have said many, many bad things about him, and I take none of them back. But he is trying to make a comeback. Valerie is correct. There is a chance that he will actually be trying to become a senator from New York. You might say to yourself, no way. That's not true. That's true. He may try. And I'll be very forward with you. As much as I don't like Cuomo, as long as I think he's a terrible person, he is a talented and powerful politician. That is a fact. He is a talented, powerful, ruthless politician. If anybody can make a comeback, it's him. Because he will step on anybody. He will do anything. He will crush anyone in his way, spend all his money. He is ruthless, and he's savvy. And he actually has some charisma. For some reason, Democrats still like him. I don't know why, but they do. Was that a terrible way of ending? I'm sorry, guys. But there is some positiveness. We are still moving forward, and people still care. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for giving me a small chunk of your afternoon. Glad to be back. I will see you all very soon.
I will rise.